everyone! So I'm sitting here in the middle of a typhoon just trying to ride out the storm. So I figured I'd take the opportunity to sit down and actually make another YouTube video. Please ignore any random presence of tiny, ferocious kitten in this video. She's kind of in play mode. Go on. Recently, I've been going through the comments on my other video, the 4 things about Japan that you don't see coming, and all of those were, you know, more of the negative aspects of Japan. And I've gotten a lot of flack for it from a lot of people. People who seem to think that I hate this country and I should just buy a plane ticket back home and I have nothing good to say about anything ever, and, you know, just all sorts of stuff. And you know, honestly, I didn't make that video with the intent to be complaining, but I can totally see how it came off that way. And so to rectify that, I wanted to make a video talking about the 4 things about Japan that are really awesome. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is all the little touches that make just living here a really pleasant experience. When I say little touches, I mean things as small as heated toilet seats. In winter, this is a godsend. It's things like that. Once you get past, of course, the matter of it kind of feels like you're sitting down right after someone else. Once you get over that mental hurdle, it's all good. You know, other small touches here are things like when you enter a restaurant or when you enter a store, you'll always get greeted with like "Irashaimase, konnichiwa, go yukuri dozo." You know, basically they're saying, "Hi, welcome to the store. How are you? Take your time." And normally they'll like bow to you and stuff too. The first time I came to a Japanese McDonald's and the entire staff behind the counter full-on bows for you. Certainly not what I'm used to at McDonald's. They take customer service so seriously here. You know, in America, the prevailing attitude is things like, well, I make this much money an hour, and I'm not gonna see another dime if I make someone have a really good experience, so why should I even bother? Whereas in Japan, the mindset seems to be something like, if people have a really good experience at the store, they'll want to come back more. And if they come back more, that means I will continue to have a paycheck. So I should keep making people happy. Or it's just a fact of they view that as their job. It's just all the small, tiny details like that. Like the attention to detail that they put into things in stores. So just the user experience of lots of things in Japan are just top notch. I mean, it's all these things put together make life really, really nice here. The second point I have to mention is you don't need a car here, and that is awesome because I could never ever drive on some of the roads here. When I say that you don't need a car, it is true that if you live in a more rural area, you do need one. Like one of the schools I go out to is in Kalamata City, and there's no train station near it. To get there, you have to take an hour bus ride from where I live. To live there, you do kind of need a car. But for most people in most cities, you really don't need one. Just with the population density being what it is, everything's so close together, you can access most things you need on a day-to-day basis just with a bicycle. And then on top of that, I've got a bus stop that's literally right outside my apartment. It's a 2-minute walk. And then from there, of course, we've got the normal train system and the Shinkansen system. I have never thought about getting a car here. The reason I say that I would never ever drive on the roads here, it's not just the fact that, you know, it's the opposite side of the road from America. I could get used to that. But it's more the fact of many of the roads here, especially in like the cities and towns when you get to the residential areas, the roads are the width of 1 car. But they're still 2-lane roads. So if you've got 2 cars that meet each other and they're at an impasse, they have to find a way to make enough room for a car to get through. And in most cases, this narrow road is surrounded on both sides by a brick wall. So it just seems incredibly dangerous, and you know, I would never be that good at it. I could maybe drive a scooter. You know, I've considered that, a scooter or a motorcycle or something like that, but I could never drive a standard passenger car here. So to that end, I'm very, very happy that you really can, in most cases, get by here without a car whatsoever. Next point I wanted to talk about is probably only of interest to super geeks like myself, but retro video games here are excessively cheap. Like, you know, back in America, things like a copy of Earthbound, not even in its box, just the cartridge itself, would probably run you about $150 on eBay, or so it was last I checked. In contrast, to get the in-box complete version of Mother 2, the Japanese version of Earthbound, you know, it came with its booklet in pristine condition. We've got the cartridge in very nice condition, and this little insert that tells you all the status effects and how to actually cure them. The whole set together was the equivalent of $20. This is true for lots of other games, like I've got Final Fantasy VI in box with manual, fully complete. Secret of Mana, this was $5. Ogre Battle was about $4. This is like my favorite Kirby game, it's Kirby Dream Land 3. This was a little bit more, this was about $15. Kind of obscure things. This is Dungeons & Dragons Eye of the Beholder for Super Nintendo. This was 350 yen, so about $4. This also applies to slightly newer systems as well. This is Dynasty Warriors 3 for PS2. It was 105 yen at my local book off. That makes it about $1.50. So if you're a fan of retro video games at all, I highly suggest you, I guess, learn to read Japanese, because your life will become a lot cheaper once you do. I have no idea why retro video games are so much cheaper here than they are in the States. Maybe more games were made for this market and fewer were made for the American market because they didn't think that the response would be as popular. If you have any idea what the reasoning is behind it, feel free to let me know. The last thing I wanted to mention in terms of why Japan is a really great place to live is you get to make people's day ridiculously easy here. I did mention in my last video that people will tend to stare at you, and they'll probably ask if your hair is natural. And in some cases, some of the older Japanese people may be downright afraid of you. I've had that too. But really, most people, it's really easy to make their day just because they get to talk to a foreigner. And for some people here in the more rural areas, that's a really rare experience for them. In most cases, there's the image here of foreigners as being kind of resistant to Japanese culture, and the Japanese language is so hard to learn and no one in their right mind would even try. So if you show that you're even trying to learn and you have an interest, it makes everyone so happy. When I travel around with my tiny ball of evil fluff Pixel here, I get a bunch of people who, they think it's, first of all, really funny to be able to pet a kitten on their Shinkansen ride, but, it also then gives them an excuse to talk to me. And then they find out, like, oh, not all foreigners are bad people. Some of them carry kittens around. Or they get to play with your weird hair, and, they get to ask all these questions that they've always wanted an answer to. Or, they also just tend to think that, like, if you do something Japanese, it's really cute or really interesting. Like when I get sick and I wear a face mask around, it makes people crack up because they've never seen a foreigner in a face mask. One of the things I love most in the world is getting to make other people happy. That brings me a great amount of joy. So to be able to do it on a daily basis without really doing anything, it just makes my entire life insanely happy. It's definitely the thing I love most here, is just, the ability to make everyone happy. And also to feel that, my job, I teach English, I feel like I'm actually doing a service. I feel like I'm actually doing something very good and very useful. The ability to make students love learning based solely on the fact that this class is exotic and has a foreigner in it. This is so different. If that's all it takes to make them more excited about learning something, frickin' sign me up. I'll do this, the maximum of 5 years that JET allows me to. It's just a really wonderful experience to make people smile that often. I will wrap it up this time, just to try to keep this video as short as possible, even though by now it's probably already very long. I would like to wrap up with two things. One is I've had several people ask if I will make a video or comment on the matter of the Senkaku or Diaoyu Islands dispute that Japan and China are currently having right now. And I will not make a video about it, just because I'm not a foreign policy expert. I really have nothing to say about that matter, that would in any way benefit anyone. Last thing I'd like to comment on is something from a previous video, the one where I showed my apartment. I do want to make a video with my students, answering questions that you all have for Japanese students. So, because they're really busy preparing for the school festival, I haven't had time to get them to sit down and make this video. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask some Japanese high school students, or perhaps, you know, like the Japanese teacher of English club, so some Japanese adults as well, please leave a comment below. It would really help me out, and I'm sure my students would love to interact with as many foreigners as possible. Yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. I really, really do appreciate everyone who takes their time to sit down and listen to me talk. Thanks so much.